had this belief that I was always going to be struggling with my weight for the rest of my life. And then 12 years ago, everything changed. And I then was able to overcome this cycle of yo-yo dieting. I didn't realize that I'd overcome it for quite a few years, actually. And then it was, I got a few years down the line thinking, I'm not putting all my weight back on. What's going on? I seem to be managing myself so much better around food. I've got a better relationship with food and a better relationship with myself. What's going on? And it then made me realize that I'd been able to achieve something that many, many people find extremely difficult. So I then felt I had a bit of a duty to do something about this. So I decided to leave my job, retrain, do lots of different qualifications, and go to work as starting my own business as a weight loss coach so that I could help others to achieve what I've been able to do, because it is, I believe, possible for everybody to be able to manage this when we get all of the right things in place. And it's not easy. And so that's why I want to help people to do that. So that's a little bit about me and why I do what I do. And if you want to find out more, you can visit my website. There is it's www.youronelife.co.uk, and /about is a page where you can read about my story. And just to say that going from a couch potato, smoking nearly 20 cigarettes a day, to be very fit and healthy and being able to run marathons, it was quite a transformation in terms of my whole life, not just about losing weight and being able to fit into clothes. It just transformed everything about my life, including ending up doing what I'm doing now. So it's been extremely worth it in terms of what I've been able to achieve. So time for you to get involved. What is the problem? So obviously, you know, in my work, I'm very familiar with obviously what my own problems were and also the things that people tell me, but I'd really like to know as well from you, you know, where you think you are at the moment in terms of, you know, your reason for coming here and joining this presentation. So there's 3 questions in the poll. Can everybody see the poll? Do I need to do anything, Sarah? Has everybody got the poll?
It should be up on screens now.
Has everybody got the poll? Brilliant. So there's just 3 questions. They're multiple choice, or single choice from a list. So when it comes to losing weight, firstly, it's just which of these applies to you. So are you overweight and want to lose it, overweight but don't want to lose it at the moment, at your target weight, or something else? And obviously if there's something else and you want to message me later and tell me what it is, then, you know, please feel welcome to do so. Or if you feel comfortable to put it in the chat, you're welcome to put it in the chat. I think Delphine's just joining, Sarah, thank you. So that's the first question. And then the second question, obviously, when it comes to managing your weight, which of these applies to you right now? So many people will say, I don't know what to do. Some people will say, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it consistently. Some people say that, you know, they're at their target weight, and for some people it's other. Sorry, beg your pardon, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry. So they might say, I know what to do and it's working, I'm losing weight. Some people might say, I know what to do, I'm doing it consistently, but it's not working. Some people might tell me that they're successfully maintaining their target weight. Some people might be struggling to maintain the target weight, or it might be something else. And then finally, the third question in the poll is, which of these would be the most useful for me to cover in today's session? So there's help with peri and menopause weight, how to manage food cravings, how to lose weight without doing any exercise, how to lose weight while living a de-stressful life, and how to manage emotional eating. So if everyone can have a go at filling out the poll. At the moment, it looks like we've just got one lot of answers. So I'll give you just a moment to go through and put your answers in.
It seemed to disappear, so I've relaunched it. So
okay, thank you, Sarah.
Start again.
Sorry about that, everyone. It's technical problems. So is everybody able to see the poll now? Yeah, brilliant. So if you wouldn't mind just selecting your answers, and then we can obviously have a look, because obviously if there is, you know, any particular issues that are relevant for people, I'll make sure that I mention them as we go through. Lovely. Okay, we've got, I think, just 2 more answers to come in. So yeah, help with perimenopause, managing food cravings. Yeah. Losing weight while living a busy, stressful life and emotional eating. Yeah, and these are when I do this with my audience. This is, you know, it's very typical of the kind of things that come up and the kinds of answers that people give. Most people are overweight wanting to lose it, but there are also some people who are overweight, but actually they know that it's just not the right time in their life to try and tackle it at the moment because there may be too many other things going on, or maybe they're not unhappy. You know, because you know, it's not a foregone conclusion that we're overweight and unhappy. We can be overweight and be very happy, but it's a very personal thing. It's not something that, you know, I'm you know, would say to anyone that they should lose weight. It's a very personal decision. But if someone wants to lose weight, then obviously I want to be able to help them to do that. So we've just got one. We've only got four out of 5 now. So I'll just give it just one more minute just to see if there's any more answers that come in. So I think we've got one person that's not yet answered. Here we go. So we have so 4 out of 5, so 80% overweight want to lose it, 20% overweight don't want to lose it at the moment, and that is typical of the kind of answers that I get generally. When it comes to managing your weight, knowing what to do but not doing it consistently, and this comes back to this, you know, if we know what to do and we're not doing it consistently, there's something missing, there's something that is stopping us. So when we find out what that something is, we can then start to fill in that missing piece and start to get more results. So we've got knowing what to do but not doing it consistently, and then something else. And obviously if you want to message me with the something else, or I think we've got some in the chat here. Oh, it's just about the poll disappearing. So if you want to mention it in the chat, you can, or if you want to just message me privately after the session, then, you know, you're welcome to do that as well, and I'll give you the contact details to do that at the end. And then in terms of the things that would be most useful, obviously help with peri and menopause weight, how to manage food cravings, how to lose weight whilst living a busy, stressful life, how to manage emotional eating. They are, and obviously the emotional eating has come out as the biggest number there, 40%. And again, you know, food is so much more to us than just fuel. It generally takes up a very large part of many of our lives. Part of that is because of the world we're living in, which I'm going to be coming on to in a minute. So thank you for that. So just sharing the results. Obviously, I think can everybody see the results? Sorry, this is the first time I've actually used the poll function in Zoom, so I'm a little bit unfamiliar with how it works. But as long as you you know what the outcome's been, brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to moving on to the sorts of things that people tell me. So snacking when not hungry is a big issue. Now, obviously, that can be to do with emotional eating, or it could be simply just not being aware. So how many people, I know, walk through the kitchen and grab a handful of a few things here and there without kind of really appreciating the energy values and thinking about, you know, not appreciating how much that might add up to over a single day. And there's not necessarily anything problematic behind the reasoning, like, you know, it may not be a significant emotional issue, but it's just simply habit. You know, we can get into very strong habits with our food intake. Portion sizes, this is a big issue for many people in that portion sizes generally tend to be larger than they used to be. And if we're eating portion sizes that are larger than what we actually need, the inevitability is that we're either not going to lose weight or we're going to be putting it on. Processed foods, the problem with processed foods is that our bodies deal with them in very different ways to the way they deal with unprocessed foods, and we tend to absorb more of the calories from processed foods than we would from unprocessed foods, like for like. So 100 calorie banana versus 100 calorie Kit Kat, we're going to absorb more of the Kit Kat, because the banana has got other goodness in it that our bodies aren't going to absorb calories from. So although ripe bananas tend to be more easily digestible than an unripe one, but that's a whole other conversation. Emotional eating, yeah, very, very big issue for many of the people that I work with. But the good news is that it is possible to overcome with the right support and the right information. Sedentary lifestyles, this is something that I think creeps up on a lot of people. You know, tend to be very active when we're at school and as we grow up, and then, you know, if we end up in a sedentary job, or we move from a very active job into a sedentary job, and if we don't change anything else, we're at risk of obviously becoming overweight, and also it becomes harder to lose it. Mental, physical health issues, and that's where things like, you know, the menopause, if it is a problematic experience, can come in, because it can affect us in so many different ways, and every woman's story is different. You know, there is no one size fits all list of symptoms for the menopause. You know, we all go through different experiences, and of course when it starts is so variable for many people, and it can really impact on our mental and physical health, and obviously other mental and physical health issues could impact on our weight, both from the point of view of stopping us from being able to do things that we want to do, and also, you know, medications can really affect things like our appetite and our energy levels and all of those sorts of things. And busy and stressful lives, it's really hard to manage our weight if we're already busy and stressed and don't have much mental capacity to try and work on anything else. And of course, you know, it's very easy to just fall back into old habits when we're stressed and busy and hungry. And then food cravings, obviously, that can be a big problem for many people, particularly sugary things, because, you know, that we can develop quite addictive tendencies around the high fat, high sugar combination. Or I think high fat, high sugar, high salt is kind of known as the bliss point, where you know, foods that are kind of, you know, that kind of composition, we just want more and more and more of them, and it's very, very, very hard to stop. And of course, the more we have of something, the more we want of those sorts of things. So being able to break that cycle is really important if we want to try and lose weight. So those are the sorts of things that the people tell me, and obviously very similar to the sorts of things that you've mentioned. So why are these things such a problem for so many people? Now, if we sort of think about, you know, where are we now? We're 2023. If you were to walk down any high street, if you live in a town, or if you're visiting a town, and count up just how many shops have got anything relating to food, you would probably find that probably about 3/4, at a guess, at least, are to do with food and drink, whether that be coffee shops, whether that be supermarkets, whether that be pubs, restaurants, takeaway outlets. They're all around us. So we're already set up in an environment that is very, very different to that which our parents grew up in. So I mean, my parents were the post-war generation who remembered rationing, and you didn't eat between meals, you know, and whereas now food is just around us all the time, and we're marketed to, you know, Christmas starts in October or even September, Easter starts in January, Halloween starts in August. You know, there's no getting away from it, and it's an uphill struggle, I think, to manage in this world. But the good news is it is possible. So we're basically living in a world now that we're not designed for, and food just wasn't supposed to be around us in the way that it is. You know, we're supposed to eat when food is available, not eat when it's not. But you know, it's just our lifestyles revolve around food now. They really do. And another big problem that I think we tend not to focus on is that actually we're not designed to lose weight voluntarily. It's an active decision we have to take that goes against all of our natural instincts. We're only designed to lose weight when food isn't available. And of course, if food isn't available, what happens? We get hungry, which makes us want to seek out food. So we've got to learn to override all of that. And they're really strong signals that our bodies and our minds are sending us, that we've got to somehow manage to override whilst dealing with everything else we've got to deal with in our lives. And that's not easy. We're also designed to enjoy food and overeat when food is available. So, you know, our ancestors wouldn't be thinking, oh, I wonder how many calories is in that. I wonder if I'd be able to make room for that today. We would just eat it because it's there. And we need to enjoy food because otherwise we wouldn't have a desire to go out and seek it. We wouldn't have a desire to feed ourselves. And if we didn't have a desire to feed ourselves, we wouldn't survive. So it's very much driven by our survival instincts, and having an awareness of that can really, really help. And of course, the food manufacturers and the retailers, they know all of this, and so they market to us with foods that are ultra tasty, ultra processed, really hard to resist. And they play on that primitive desire that we have to eat when food is available and to eat really tasty food that we don't know how to stop eating. So we are being played in a game by the food manufacturers and the retailers. And unless we find a way of protecting ourselves from that, we're always going to be at risk of being overweight. And this is where I focus a lot of my work, is helping people to become wise to what's really going on, what's driving their behavior, both internally and externally, so that we can protect ourselves and develop the skills and the knowledge we need. And that is why it's not easy to lose weight. So yes, eat less, move more. That sounds simple, but how do you eat less in this world that we live in? How do you move more in a way that is not going to trigger off all your survival instincts and make you really hungry? So that is the dilemma, and that is the conundrum, and that is why we might think we know how to lose weight, but unless we tackle that space where the problem is, we will never achieve that success that we desperately want. So what can we do about it? So first thing we can do is to learn how to use a different part of our brain to make the decisions about food. So as I was saying earlier, the part of our brain that is responsible for our survival, which is the primitive part of our brain, is also the part that's responsible for our desire for food, because our desire for food is linked to our survival. So as soon as that part of us feels threatened, it comes into overdrive, makes us hungry, makes us think about food differently. So if you imagine looking at a plate of food, and particularly maybe your favorite food, when you're hungry, versus looking at that same plate of food when you're really stuffed and don't want to eat anything, you will see that plate of food in a completely different way. That's because you're now using the more rational part of your brain instead of that primitive part of your brain that just wants to eat the food. So if we can learn how to use a different part of our brain, the more rational part of our brain, when we make all of our decisions about food, we can learn to protect ourselves from the tendency to become overweight. Because don't forget, our bodies don't have an off switch that says, right, you've put on enough weight now. They will keep putting on weight and putting on weight and putting on weight until we change something. So one of the things that we can do in terms of helping ourselves to move into this space is to be really clear about our goals. So be really, really deeply understanding of why it is that you want to lose weight. You know, most people will say, well, I just want to look better in my clothes, or I want to feel better. But actually, what does that really mean to you? So what would happen if you felt good in your clothes? What difference would that make to your life? And being able to trace that through as far as you possibly can, so that you can get to the really values that you hold dear in your life. So give you an example. For me, my deep reasons for losing weight is I want to be able to, when I'm turned 50 next month, I want to be able to, when I turn 60, when I turn 70, when I turn 80, and possibly longer, to be able to still be mobile, to be independent, to be able to do all of the things that I want to do with my family, to be able to live my life to the full. And that really comes down to, you know, that really strong sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. And it all comes back to, if I allow my weight to pile back on and then feel the pain of achy joints and not being able to move properly and be extremely worried about all of the health issues that I might then develop, I won't be making the best of my life. And that to me is where it sits. And the byproduct is that, yeah, I like what I look what I see in the mirror, and I like that I can walk into any shop and put something on and not worry about how it's going to look on me. That's a bonus. But the real reason is I want to be able to do all of the things that I want to do in my life, and get to the end of my life feeling fulfilled and satisfied and happy in the best way that I can, and do my best. And not only that, there's so many byproducts that kind of like pass off from that. You know, being able to overcome my weight struggles has enabled me to change careers and move from a job that was okay to a role that I'm now doing that I absolutely love. And every day of my working life, I'm finishing the day feeling like I'm really making a difference to others, and that's really powerful. And no food that I could eat is going to ever come close to that importance to me now. So I can now look at food very differently. So I can still eat all my favorite foods, but I eat them in a way that's still going to mean that I achieve my goals in life. And that is, when we get really deep into that, we can really make a difference, because we need to be in a position where any food we get tempted by, we can instantly recall our vision of what it is that we want to achieve and recognize that actually that's more important than any temptation. So it's not to say you can't ever enjoy your food. It doesn't mean so you can't ever eat your favorite foods. What it does mean is that you eat them in a way and in a quantity that's still in line with your overall goals. And it's about learning that compromise with yourself, which I'll come on to a little bit more. So we need to make sure that we're not reacting instantly. So let's just say, I don't know, you go to somebody's house, oh, would you like a piece of cake? And you may be in the habit of just saying, oh, yes, please. It may be a case of, do I really want to eat that cake right now? Or do I want to maybe say, thank you very much, that's really nice of you, I'll take it home and I'll have it later because I'm not hungry right now. It's about being able to come in with a more rational response, as opposed to the kind of like the child in a sweet shop kind of response, which is what we tend to do if that's what our habits and our behaviors normally be. Because when we the way we behave around food is very habitual and very habit based, in terms of, if that's the way we've always done it, that's the way we're always going to do it, unless we decide to make a change. So thinking about what decisions we're making, so like that cake, you think, yeah, I could have it later when I'm hungry, and it's still going to not take me over the amount of energy that I can eat in a day without putting on weight. And it's being conscious of those things and making sure that the choices that we're making are both good for us, both in terms of our mental and physical health together. Because if it's good for our mental health because it makes us feel better, but actually it's going to make us feel worse physically because we're going to put on weight, it's not really good for us. Whereas if we think, well, I can have that piece of cake at a time when it's going to suit me, it's not going to interfere with my goals, and I can still enjoy it, then that's okay. And it's learning how to make the differentiation. Reminding ourselves that food is not scarce and we can have it whenever we want. So let's just say you get an Easter egg and it's your favorite Easter egg in the whole world, and you think, oh, if I don't eat that Easter egg today, I'm never going to be able to eat that Easter egg. And in actual thing, you think that Easter egg is just marketed chocolate. It does taste exactly the same if it's in a bar, and I can go out and buy that chocolate bar anytime I like, and I'm just being marketed to with this Easter egg that's twice as expensive as any chocolate bar I could buy. Or the other alternative is, yeah, I want to have the best Easter egg I can buy, but I don't have to eat it all at once. I can make it last several days, several weeks, as long as it needs to last. And it's learning that food does not have any power over you, that it's simply food. And yes, it's there to be enjoyed, it's a treat. But if you eat all of that Easter egg all in one go, it's actually not going to help you. You might think, oh, I'll eat it all in one go just to get it out of the way, so it's not there to tempt me tomorrow. A better position to learn how to achieve is to have it there and not be tempted, so that you can eat it when the time is right, that is good for you both mentally and physically. It takes practice. This is not the sort of thing you can learn to do overnight. I didn't learn to do it overnight. The way that I like to think about it is think if you're a driver, when you went to have your very first driving lesson, and the time it took you to take your very first driving lesson up to the time when you felt that actually you were a competent driver and you didn't have to keep thinking about what you were doing. And I'm willing to bet that would have been quite some time after you passed your driving test. Might have even been several years. You might even not feel that confident yet. It's the same with this. It's about the continued effort and the continued focus and the continued remembering what's important to you, and being aware of the decisions that you're taking by using the rational part of your brain rather than the knee-jerk primitive part that's just wanting to make you feel comfortable and safe, because that's its job, to make you feel safe and comfortable in that moment. And no food is ever the answer to the problem unless you're hungry. And even then, it's only about having the amount of food that your body actually needs, and which not necessarily as much as you want. It's being able to learn how to be okay with less food and not feel worried or threatened by that. Because hunger, as I said, is our primitive survival instinct that tells us to seek out food. So of course we're going to feel uncomfortable. But it's learning to accept that when we want to lose weight, we have to accept there are going to be times we're going to be a bit hungry, but that's okay. As long as we don't get to the point where we're so starving that we then lose all ability to control ourselves. So a 7 out of 10 hunger is a good place to be. Then finally, finding healthier ways to manage our non-hunger related reasons for eating. So, if we've got a very strong desire to eat emotionally, when we're stressed, when we're tired, when we're upset, even when we're celebrating, pretty much everything we do when we're celebrating tends to revolve around food, but we may not necessarily be hungry. So it's about managing that. But, you know, thinking about, if you're stressed, is eating the answer to feeling stressed? If you're upset, is eating the answer to feeling upset? Because actually it might make you feel better for about 5 minutes, and then a little while later, when you're feeling really full and uncomfortable, and if you're anything like I used to be, really annoyed with yourself and upset and disgusted and full of, you know, shame of there I've lost control over my food again, you know, that's not a good place to be. So what are other healthier ways that you can deal with that? Listen to what your insides are telling you in terms of what the problem is, and find a way of dealing with it that is not food related, so that ultimately it helps you to manage the problem, because the food just puts it off for a short while. It doesn't actually solve anything. And it's, again, learning that. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something about we have to keep, you know, practicing. It is practice and regular practice. So the second thing that we can do is we can learn to work with our body and mind instead of against them. Because remember what I said earlier, you know, when we're losing weight, we are not designed to do it voluntarily. So as soon as we try, we are putting ourselves in direct conflict with our biology and our physiology and our psychology. And our whole being is screaming out to us to say, don't do it. And so we're in conflict. So on the one hand, we want the result, but we don't necessarily want to do the work. So there is another way, and that is by learning how to work with our body and mind instead of against them. So a good place to start is try to resist the temptation to join the gym and go 7 days a week and live on 1,200 calories. Because all that is going to do is make you hungry, tired, stressed, and have a binge, or at the very least eat more than you intended to. And then you go to the gym, your fitness tracker was saying you burnt 600 calories, and you think, oh, it's all right, I can eat the 600 calories. Actually, you can't, because it doesn't work like that. Fitness trackers are notorious for being completely inaccurate. So we don't want to be measuring our calories burned and then eating them back. So we need to make sure that we're focusing on not eating too much less and not moving too much more. And it's a very fine balance, and it takes a little bit of trial and error to find where it's comfortable for us. So, which brings me on to the next thing is, like, don't try to change everything all at once, because if you try and completely overhaul your lifestyle overnight, it just becomes really stressful, because you pile on loads of pressure and trying to, you know, do all the other things that we need to do in our lives, and then as soon as something extra comes in, it's the first thing that's going to fall. And if we're doing loads and loads of exercise, we're going to get really tired. We're not going to have much mental capacity to cope with extra things. It's also stressful for the body, you know, because exercise is good for us, but too much exercise is actually a stress, and then it just undermines all of our efforts, and they say we'll just get really hungry. So start by changing little things. So, you know, rather than think, well, I've got to go to the gym, I've joined the gym and I've got to go 5 times a week for 2 hours every time, or an hour every time. It's like, okay, I'll join the gym and, you know, build it up gradually. Or if you don't want to, if you don't want exercise to be a big feature for whatever reason, then it really will be about focusing on diet first and foremost. And indeed, exercise doesn't have anything like the amount of impact on weight loss as we'd like to think it does. It's brilliant for maintaining weight loss, and it's important in terms of building up and safeguarding our muscle mass by making sure we are using our muscles. But it really does come down to 80 to 90% down to what we eat and how much we eat, and it's about getting the balance right. So it really is about focusing on finding for yourself, and as we're all individuals, there is no one size fits all. It is a little bit of a trial and error process, finding the right combination of taste, because we've got to enjoy what we're eating. So if we're not enjoying what we're eating, we won't stick at it. We've got to have the right amount of calories that our bodies need to be able to lose the weight, or at the very least not put it on if we're trying to maintain and not lose. And also to make sure that we are getting good nutrition from what we're eating, because, you know, we could lose weight on a diet of Kit Kats, but we wouldn't be very healthy on it, and I wouldn't advise it. but it would work in the short term, but it wouldn't do you any good. So it's about making sure that there is, you know, room for some treats, but making sure that the majority of our diet is, you know, as minimally processed as possible. Just thinking about always trying to make the better choice wherever you can. So, for example, if you're presented with a choice of chips or potatoes, go for the potatoes, because they're more in their natural state, whereas chips have been through, you know, a process of, you know, potentially manufacturing if they're oven chips, and obviously they end up in the fat fryer. So, you know, that's going to be adding extra calories that we don't need. So it's just wherever you can making the best choice that you can, but not trying to be perfect. Forgive yourself for being human, because ultimately, as I said, losing weight is really hard. So you're not always going to get it right. But what we mustn't do is expect perfection. And it's about giving yourself the time to go through trial and error. Here goes my dog with her bed, bless her. So it's like working out through trial and error and giving yourself the time and be patient with yourself to learn what is that magic formula that's going to work for you in terms of activity and exercise. But be mindful of the fact that lots of exercise and cutting calories works in the beginning. It just doesn't work for very long because we can't stick at it. So rather than going too hard too fast, just thinking about, rather than going really low on the calories, really high on the exercises, find where is that balance that you can try and strike for yourself, and just work through it, trial and error, little by little. The most important thing is that you don't stop trying, because if you stop trying, you definitely won't get where you want to be. But it's being able to step out of that very emotional place and again think rationally about it. And then the third thing, the third and final area that I'm going to go through is that learning how to develop your skills and learn from mistakes, because, you know, we are human. And as I said, we're not perfect. We're not going to get it right every time. It is one of the hardest things to do. If we look at the statistics, in 2021 in the UK, 64% of adults were either overweight or obese. That's 2/3 of the population, more or less. So that just shows just how big a problem this is, and that you are not alone in trying to manage it. But we do need to find a way of managing it if we want to not be overweight, if we want to reduce the health risks of being overweight. So we've got to learn how to do this, but in a way, you know, if any other thing that you would be learning to do, you would be learning it through, you know, a process of learning from your mistakes. And this is no different. This really is no different. So remembering that it's hard for most people and being kind to yourself through the process. So instead of having, if you have a day that went a bit pear-shaped, instead of going, oh, I'm so greedy and being really hard on yourself, it's thinking, okay, so why did that happen? What was it that led to that? Being able to tap into what it was and being able to use that as an experience that you can then plan for in the future. So using those experiences to then plan ahead and develop your strategies for managing difficult situations ahead of time. And then using tools to help you. So, you know, there's so many gadgets around, lots of apps, lots of planners to try and make the process easier. And there is, again, no one size fits all. It's finding what's going to work for you with your personality, with your lifestyle, with your preferences. You know, some people absolutely love data. So counting calories and doing measurements and all of that sort of thing is going to be great. Other people can't bear to do that. So learning how to understand portion control may be a better way to go, and there again, there are lots of apps and things that can help, and obviously getting support. And when we are dealing with, you know, particular issues like, you know, see perimenopause and menopause, it's finding the right support to help you with, you know, where you are in your stage of life. And there are different things that work for different people according to what's going on. So, you know, a good example with menopause and perimenopause is that we can't get away with doing what we did in our 20s without our bodies fighting back, basically. And, you know, we might have been able to get away with losing weight. I mean, my kind of easy way of losing weight in my 20s was to live on Ryvitas, rich tea biscuits, Diet Coke, and that was about it, really. I couldn't get away with doing that now. And also I know that I can't do as much exercise as I used to be able to do without my body starting to kind of protest at me and making me very tired. And so I've now had to sort of adjust how much exercise I do and when I do it, what time of the day that I do it. so that I'm not fighting with my body and making it do stuff that actually it doesn't want to do. Because the thing about peri and menopause is that as we age, regardless of the menopause, actually, as we age, we naturally lose muscle mass, which basically means that we lose the ability to burn as many calories. So even if we didn't change what we eat, we're going to be creating a gap between what our bodies need and potentially eating more than that. And it only takes the equivalent of 2 Bourbon biscuits a day rather, to put on a stone in a year. So if we're gradually eating simply like 120 calories a day extra, that's a stone in a year. Over 5 years, that's 5 stone. And of course, we can counteract that by doing things like resistance training, making sure that we're protecting our muscle mass, making sure that we're getting enough protein. And our needs change as we get older. And if we're not adjusting what we're doing as we get older, we are going to be more at risk of developing problems with being overweight, and also the strategies that we need to employ to lose it will change. And again, it is very, very individual, and getting some support, from anyone who knows about the particular issues that you're dealing with is really important, because we have this, I think, culture that losing weight should be easy and we should be able to just do it ourselves. But actually, anything else we'd find difficult, we'd go to a specialist. We'd go to a specialist in that area to get help. And yet, for some reason, we think when it comes to our weight that we can do it alone, when actual fact, or we can do it with minimal support, when actual fact, if you think about the difference it could actually make to your life, it's a really worthwhile investment to get some support. And that's the way that I view it, and indeed have got lots of support over the years for myself. And I do believe that that's one of the reasons why I've been able to achieve the success that I've been able to achieve, because I've made use of the support that's available to me from the right people at the right time, with the right knowledge and expertise to be able to help me with my specific issues. So just thinking back to the poll and the specific issues that came up, in terms of, being able to manage the menopause, being able to manage emotional eating, being able to manage snacking, being able to manage how to manage without doing too much exercise, because not everybody can do a lot of exercise. It's about finding people who have got experience and expertise in that area that can support you, because it's not easy. And as I say, our needs change as we get older. And then finally, it's so important that we don't, unless we're just doing something for a very, very time limited period, like maybe a week or two, is that we don't try and cut out all of our favorite foods and drinks, because as soon as we try and do that, we're going to go rebound, and then we're just going to end up eating them and having them all the more when we decide we can eat them again. So by learning how to compromise with ourselves, learning how to think, well, okay, so if I want to go out for that meal on Saturday, if depending on what your goal is. So if your goal is to maintain weight, obviously it's a lot easier to include those things. If you're trying to lose weight, then it's about, well, what do I need to not do in order to be able to accommodate that? Or what compromises do I need to make with myself? So it may be a case of, well, I'll go out and I'll have whatever I want for the main, but I'll go without the dessert, or I'll have a light main because I really want to have that favorite dessert, which I'm only going to that place because of the dessert. And it's being able to sort of do this dynamically, as you go about your day, as you go about your week, just really thinking about what's coming up and how you might be able to manage and compromise with yourself, and make sure that, as long as 80% of your diet is nutritious, you've got 20% to just have whatever you fancy, and not think that anything's off the menu, not think of food in terms of good or bad. No food is good or bad. It's how we use it that is the problem. So by changing the way that we see it and seeing it as, yes, it is fuel, yes, it is nutrition, but yes, it's also to be enjoyed, yes, it is also social, yes, it is also for celebration, but also perhaps thinking about, does food need to take up quite as much space in our lives as it does at the moment? And perhaps if you're thinking about, oh, it's somebody's birthday, let's go out for a meal, could it be, oh, let's go out to do something else, and then the meal is maybe a secondary consideration, so that we're not revolving around food all of the time, but still allowing ourselves to have that freedom to enjoy it, but in a less frequent way. Because I say, you know, thinking back to when I was growing up, the only takeaway we had was a fish and chip shop that was 2 miles drive from the house, and we had that once in a blue moon. Whereas now I can just go on to Just Eat and I can have whatever I want delivered to me in the next 20 minutes. I can even order a Costa now if I want to go on, you know, and have that delivered to me in the next 15 minutes, which is crazy. And it's like we're almost like kids in a sweet shop, and we need to put some healthy, sensible boundaries around that, just like we would with our own children as they're growing up. If we have children, you know, thinking about what do children need as they're growing up, they need some healthy, sensible boundaries put in place. They need someone to help them to stay within those boundaries and support them to learn how to grow up into sensible adults. And I think it's the same with our inner child that wants to eat all the sweets, and we need to learn how to put those boundaries in place. So that's everything that I wanted to share with you. I hope it has been useful. I would really love to know if there are any sort of real key points that have perhaps stood out for you today that you